Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters on France 24. I'm Julia Kim. Coming up on the show this week. Israel's government faces collapse. An Arab-Israeli party suspending its membership of Prime Minister Naftali Bennett's fragile coalition over recent clashes in Jerusalem. 6 months and counting, Iraq's political deadlock drags on. With no president or prime minister, the effects are being felt by ordinary citizens. And retelling history, audiences in Egypt tune in to a controversial TV drama that depicts the 2013 coup d'etat from the perspective of the current regime. But we begin in Israel, where the government of Prime Minister Naftali Bennett is on the verge of collapse. This after the Arab-Israeli Raam party threatened to leave the ruling coalition over recent clashes in Jerusalem. More than 150 Palestinians were injured in those clashes with Israeli security forces. As Selena Sykes reports, Bennett is now scrambling to hold his fractious coalition together.
Israel's political stability is once again hanging by a thread. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett is trying to hold together his fragile coalition, following divisions sparked by violence in Jerusalem. Recent clashes between Palestinians and Israeli police at Al-Aqsa Mosque have come at a tense time, when Jewish Passover coincides with the Islamic holy month of Ramadan. The unrest has pushed the Raam party, largely backed by Muslim Arab Israelis, to freeze its membership, in a mainly symbolic move for now as Parliament is in recess, with hopes that tensions will blow over before it resumes in early May.
It's very difficult for Mr. Abbas to say nothing happens and we should continue in the same way. And no, he has to answer his basis, his electoral basis, which ask him what are we doing with this government, with this police and this army and so on.
Last year, Prime Minister Bennett ended 12 years of rule by Benjamin Netanyahu by bringing together an unlikely group of political parties, including leftists and centrists, as well as religious and hardline Jewish nationalist parties. And for the first time in Israel's history, a party from the country's Arab-Israeli minority. Raam party head Mansour Abbas has now threatened to withdraw its 4 members of parliament, in what would be a huge blow for the government.
It had a slender majority of 61 seats out of 120. A couple of weeks ago, there was a defection from the Prime Minister's own party. A right-wing Jewish politician defected, 60-60. If now there are 4 more politicians who are no longer going to be part of this government, it could mean the end of the government.
The opposition would have a hard task cobbling together enough votes to topple the government. Netanyahu's 53-seat bloc of right-wing Orthodox and far-right Jewish parties would have to unite with Arab ones, while many right-wing members currently in coalition have refused to join an administration led by Netanyahu, who is currently on trial for corruption, though the opposition could gather enough votes to dissolve parliament and trigger elections.
Now, 6 months after elections, Iraq is still no closer to choosing a president or prime minister. The 2 largest political blocs are locked in a power-sharing dispute, which has led to a boycott of parliamentary sessions. The effects of this stalemate is being felt amongst ordinary Iraqis. Our correspondent Lucille Wasserman has the story.
On the outskirts of Baghdad, Mohanad al-Asadi supervises the construction of new roads. Usually the manager has 10 projects going at once, but Iraq's political deadlock has brought most of his work to a standstill.
Most of the funds for infrastructure projects for roads, sewage, electricity, etc. are all funded by the federal budget. Since the government hasn't been formed, the budget hasn't been submitted, let alone approved.
Thousands of projects are stalled across the country, and Mohanad can't hide his frustration with the political impasse.
We went to vote, now it's time for politicians to step up and work together, form a government and move this country forward.
Long delays are typical when forming a government in Iraq, on average lasting 5.5 months. This is a time when political blocs are supposed to negotiate how to share power, but for the first time in nearly 20 years, official discussions are simply not happening because the biggest winner of the elections, Muqtada al-Sadr, refuses to include his rivals, an alliance of pro-Iran parties, in the government.
The system of governance has been consensus-based since 2003, so all components of Iraqi society must agree. Now they want to break this tradition. Well then, it's within our rights to form alliances with other parties and boycott parliamentary sessions.
Neither political bloc has the majority needed to take control of the government. As a result, a stalemate has taken hold in the country, and ordinary citizens are suffering the fallout, especially in low-income neighborhoods where residents rely on government projects to bring about an adequate standard of living.
During elections, we were promised that projects would start as soon as the government was formed. For example, they told us that they were going to get rid of all this landfill so that we could live a normal life. If only you knew how the smell and smoke makes us sick.
There's no guarantee that these promises will be kept should a government be formed. But as long as the status quo remains, a better life for Iraqis is impossible.
In Lebanon, breaking the daily fast for Ramadan has never been so fraught with anxiety. Bread and oil are scarce, food shortages are worsening in the crisis-hit country because of the war in Ukraine. Lebanon imports over half its wheat from there. France 24's correspondent Sally Farhat has this report.
In her kitchen, Sula Sinno prepares tonight's dinner to break her fast. Zucchini stuffed with rice and meat. But for this mother, Ramadan is difficult to manage this year because of Lebanon's economic crisis.
In previous years, we used to have salad, soup, and different meals every iftar. All that changed this year. We satisfy our needs with one meal only.
Lebanese fasting during Ramadan also fear running out of flour and oil, as the import of both products has been halted by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. In anticipation of such shortages, Sula stocked up on vegetable oil.
In this box, we have 4 oil cans, 5 liters each. This reserve is for Ramadan because we do a lot of frying during this month, but it also serves as a backup in case of any shortages.
Aside from the oil shortage, bread has been almost nowhere to be found due to the country's low flour reserve.
I will search for bread in different shops. Maybe I'll go to another supermarket or a bakery. If I can't find anything, we'll replace bread with biscuits.
The risks of shortages threaten the dinner plans of Lebanese fasting this Ramadan. Thousands of families have no choice but to be resilient once again while they wait for the storm to pass.
Now, an Egyptian television drama is stirring controversy in the country. The Choice is a series that recounts the days preceding the 2013 coup from the point of view of the current regime. Now, 9 years ago, on July the 3rd, the army deposed the democratically elected president, Mohamed Morsi. Our correspondents sent us this story.
For decades, the show Fawazir Ramadan accompanied Egyptians during their month of fasting, a succession of lighthearted riddles that set the tone for the holiday from the 1960s to the year 2000. But Egypt's Ramadan entertainment has taken a political turn, notably with season 3 of controversial docudrama The Choice. It tells the story of the days following the 2011 revolution and the ouster of Hosni Mubarak, from the election of the Muslim Brotherhood's Mohamed Morsi to the 2013 military coup of General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
It's a documentary drama, but it's more like a documentary than a drama. And it covers a very recent period, just 6 or 7 years ago. So the viewers already know what happened and have part of the truth. Now they're watching the rest.
Made by a production company with ties to the government, critics say The Choice exclusively reflects the narrative of current President al-Sisi. Egyptians are divided between those who watch it with pleasure and those who see it as a form of government propaganda.
The Choice and other political shows like it, some people don't even want to watch them. We feel like the government is imposing them on us when we're more used to watching comedies or soap operas during Ramadan.
Political dramas, even when they're made for a general audience, contain real information. Maybe there are a lot of people like me who don't really know what happened. I find that they document lots of events I wasn't necessarily aware of.
Real information, carefully filtered through the lens of Egyptian authorities. For a new style of Ramadan entertainment that divides audiences rather than bringing them together.
And finally, decorated glazed bricks almost 3,000 years old are on display at Iran's National Museum, capping off a 4-decade search disrupted by war and an international legal battle. The work was created by the Manaeans, who lived in the first millennium BC. The artifacts were looted during the 1979 Islamic Revolution and ended up being seized by Swiss police in 2008. After more than 10 years of legal wrangling, they were returned to Iran at the end of 2020. There are ongoing talks with the US and Australia to repatriate more stolen art. Well, that's it from us. There's more news coming up here on France 24. Stay with us.